Okay, welcome everybody. Appreciate you joining us on this Thursday for another one of our great Shopify webinars. We'll give it just a few minutes here for everybody to join and get sorted. For those of you who are here, we're excited. We have a very fun topic today. We're going to be going over what we call Shopify already does that. As a certified Shopify agency, we oftentimes get a lot of people asking for different custom features and different custom needs. And they say, hey, can we build something or can I use an app? And oftentimes we have to remind everybody that Shopify has a lot of really great native features. There's a lot of really great tools that are built into the platform, and you don't always necessarily have to go looking for an app or start thinking about something custom. There's a lot of great things that Shopify already does. And so we thought we would take the time today to talk about some of the topic. I mean, this is a long list, of course, but we really just want to tackle some of the main kind of core ones that Shopify does that the people ask for quite often. So again, we'll just take a few minutes here to wait for everybody to join. I do want to take this opportunity to announce that if you have any questions about anything that's happening, please feel free to use the Q&A link that's at the bottom of the page there. This will allow you to pose a question. It'll pop up, and Patrick, who's joining me for this webinar as always, will be taking care of those questions, going through them, and making sure that everything gets added. So we'll just give it one more minute here, and we'll let everybody join. You feel free to take this time to go ahead and get some questions, if you have any, added to the system.
Yeah, definitely. If there's any particular topics or functionality that you're interested in, we'll get to all of it. But to spark some ideas, subscriptions, loyalty, scheduling apps, those types of things, any topics of interest, drop them in the Q&A and we'll try to get to them.
Okay, we'll just wait for one more quick minute here, and then we'll get the ball rolling. And again, feel free to drop those questions. Okay, well, let's go ahead and jump into it, Zos. All right, again, thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it. As we mentioned, today is all about Shopify. What can you do natively in Shopify versus apps? What does that look like? What are the cost differences? What are the features? We're going to go through a demo for some of the features on that as well. First off, who are we? Why are we giving you this webinar? So we are Sunrise Integration. We are a very long time Shopify partner. With over 24 years of experience in the e-commerce space, we've been building sites, building integrations, doing things for a lot of clients, and we were one of the first Shopify partners, both on the retail side and on the online side. So we definitely have lots of experience. I'm really excited to utilize Shopify and all the different things that we do. As I've already stated here a few times, please use the Q&A link that's at the bottom of the page there. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in at any point in time. Patrick is going to be answering those questions, or at least alerting us so we can answer those questions together. So you definitely don't have to wait. Just start putting them in now, and we'll get to them as soon as some time persists.
Yeah, and maybe just to jump on that, I see some folks already dropping questions and topics in the chat. We'll definitely keep an eye on that too and try to get to those. But if you can put them in the Q&A, it'll be a little bit easier for us to stay organized and get to your questions.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely please use the Q&A, because the Q&A lets everybody see the question, so that we will know that somebody doesn't ask a question that's maybe already there. So again, in terms of hosts, my name is Dean. I'm the CTO at Sunrise Integration, and I'm joined as always, by Patrick. I'll let Patrick say hello.
Yeah, hi everybody. E-commerce and we'll say digital commerce consultant here because we do a ton of point of sale work as well, and director of business development here at Sunrise Integration. Thanks for joining.
Cool. Thank you very much, Patrick. Okay, let's talk about the agenda for today. What are we going to be talking about during this webinar? So first and foremost, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about what are some of the common features that we see people asking for that they need to do their e-commerce sites. And it's going to be a whole series of different ones. Then we're going to say, okay, of those kind of top most common features, how does Shopify do it, right? This is all about how Shopify does things natively versus trying to use an app. So we'll walk you through some of those features, show you what it looks like in Shopify, show you how Shopify implements that. And then we're going to talk about savings, right? So Shopify, of course, is, you've got the Shopify platform, and then apps have a cost associated with them. So what is the potential cost savings here, right? What do you gain by actually doing things natively, and why would a platform like Shopify that has all these native tools, why it's potentially an advantage to use something like Shopify versus maybe going with another platform that requires you to use a lot of third-party systems. So that there's a pretty good significant cost savings there, and we'll definitely go over that. We'll talk about the best practices for utilizing those Shopify features, right? If you are in fact going to use them, how would it work? What's the best way to use them? Oftentimes some of Shopify's features are great ways to get started, but it's quite possible you might maybe outgrow some of those features. And so we're going to end the discussion by saying, okay, well, at what point in time does it actually make sense where you actually might want to use an app, right? When you might say, hey, I've outgrown some of the things that are there. I will in fact need an app. So we'll definitely end everything with that. So with that said, we want to jump right into this list of what we like to call the most commonly needed e-commerce features. And definitely want to talk to Patrick on the sales side a little bit about each of these different features. But this is kind of a short list of what we're seeing when people say, hey, these are features that I need. I really want to be able to handle these on a day-to-day basis. How will they work in Shopify? Do I need an app? Can I do it natively? What does it look like? And by far, one of the most common features is subscriptions. Everybody these days wants to create some kind of a subscriptions because subscriptions are a great way to get recurring revenue, right? It's a great way to set something up, and then every month you're making a bunch of money. So I would definitely say that this is probably one of the top things that requests that we're seeing. Patrick, is that kind of aligning in terms of like probably one of our biggest requests?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everyone is interested in predictable, reoccurring revenue. So we're seeing all sorts of types of businesses trying different things with subscriptions. And I'd say this is a great topic for benefits of native Shopify because obviously when you do want to do something really bespoke, really creative on the subscription side of things, there's a ton of apps out there, but Shopify has some great native subscription functionality that can really help you, establish a proof of concept, save money, and then also, in many cases, it's enough, right? Like you don't actually need to invest in a secondary app or anything like that. So, yes, thumbs up to subscriptions.
Following the heels of subscriptions is product bundles. So this again is another very, very common one that people want to do, right? There's this idea of AOV, right? Kind of average order value, and how can increase that average order value. And product bundles is one of those things where, hey, if you bundle a couple things together, things that make sense, of course, bundle some things together, then now all of a sudden people are going to be buying potentially more expensive items, more expensive bundles, and it'll raise that AOV. Which, Patrick, right? That's a pretty desired topic out there in the e-commerce world, right?
Yeah, it's probably one of the top five metrics that folks are looking at in their sales stores. And again, one of these things where it's applicable to so many different types of business, from like apparel to car parts. It also has the benefit of serving your customer, right? Like if you know that if he's going to be buying A, there's an 80% chance that he'll want or need product B, then why not create a bundle around it so you can promote it as a much simpler shopping experience for customers?
Definitely. Yeah. And if anybody out there, if you guys are doing bundles or thinking of doing subscriptions, drop us a question in the Q&A. Let us know, what are your issues with it? What are you seeing? Any problems with it? What you want to have solved? The next thing is forms, right? The web is an interactive medium. People always want to be able to pose questions or get information or have sign up forms or things like that. And forms is another popular thing, right? Getting some kind of an online form, allowing some way to easily create these forms to gather information from your customers, extremely important. If you're not doing it, you definitely should be. And there's got to be an easy way for doing. And I think Patrick, most people these days there's a form for everything, right? Signing
Yeah.
up for newsletters or something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, tons of different forms, tons of different use cases, and obviously this is valuable customer information. So the topic always extends to where is this data going, right? Does it just live within Shopify, or are we moving it into your CRM or your email marketing platform so you can do segmentation, those types of things? So all super valuable. And just as we're getting to the end of this list, there's a few things that have popped up in the Q&A that we'll want to add to the agenda, but we'll wrap up the things we've got prepared here, and then we can dig into some of the other ones that have popped up.
Yeah, definitely. Searching and filtering. Yeah, of course, the when somebody lands on your site, search is very, very critical. How can you ensure that people are getting and finding the things that they need? Because if they can't find it, they're going to assume you don't have it and they're going to leave. So you want to make sure that you've got a good way to manage your search, create good filters with your products and everything. So that's, a very important thing. And Patrick, I mean, are you finding that merchants are really prioritizing search enough, or is it something that we got to keep reminding them that, hey, this is probably the most important feature you're going to have on your site?
Yeah, I mean, if they're not, they should be. I would say if you want to cater to the shoppers with the highest intent of buying, and the majority of actual conversions start with search, right? So for folks that have their little search bar buried in the top right corner as a tiny little magnifying glass, my advice is always let's move it front and center. Let's make that search button super easy to find, so that people that know they want to buy something are not looking around, or jumping off the homepage and falling off the sales cycle. So yeah, the search filtering critical.
Definitely a critical one. Um, and as far as today's topics go, the last one on our list is going to be customer marketing. Once you are making sales, or once you have people coming to the site, you're going to want to market to those customers. That repeat business is the easiest business to get, right? It's much more cost effective to get a repeat customer than trying to go out there and either through ads or through SEO or whatever, trying to gain new customers. That's a much more expensive segment to do. So finding some way to be able to get your customers, segment them, reach out to them, that's definitely an important part. And again, are people doing that enough? It seems like it's an obvious thing, right, Patrick? But
Hmm.
oftentimes you have to remind people what an important piece of e-commerce, doing some kind of customer marketing actually is.
Yeah, I mean it's a deep well of conversations to get into, and a lot of things to talk about when it comes to customer marketing. And it always it depends on the business, the size of the marketing list, the amount of traffic you're getting, how established the business is, opportunities for segmentation and automation. All these different aspects of marketing super critical to at least be thinking about.
Definitely. So, what we want to do now is let's jump into Shopify. Before we do that, though, Patrick, you'd mentioned about maybe a couple other topics or things some people had asked about. Maybe we can
Yeah,
discuss a couple of those real quick.
there's a little theme forming here
Okay,
around SEO and LLM optimization.
sure.
What does Shopify offer natively to improve visibility to the Googles and the Chat GPTs of the world? And what's on the horizon for Shopify and LLMs, I think would be an interesting thing to chat about. And then the other one came from Jill. The sales tax charging and customer, sales tax charging the customer and reporting capabilities for taxes. So yeah, didn't make it onto the list here as far as a page, but a hot topic, and plenty of native functionality, and plenty of other great apps out there for this that we use on a regular basis. So we'll get to
Yeah.
those for sure.
Yeah, let's definitely put a reminder to talk about sales tax. Last month on our last webinar, we actually was dedicated entirely to SEO and LLMs and everything. So I don't want to rehash that too much because we had
Sure.
a whole hour on that, but we'll definitely touch on that a little bit for sure.
Yeah, and I'll
Um,
drop a link to that webinar to the group so folks can catch up on that sometime as well.
Okay, great. Okay, so what we'll do now here is I'm going to share a Shopify screen, and I'm going to walk through some of the different things that we had just talked about and show you how Shopify handles these things. And we'll talk about, does it make sense? Is it feature rich enough for you to do the things that you need to do using Shopify? So here we go. This is the Shopify administration screen. I'm sure most of you have seen this, and you guys are all pretty familiar with this particular screen. On Shopify, let's start with the first one on our list with this, which is subscriptions. So Shopify has their native feature, which is called Shopify subscriptions. And with Shopify subscriptions, you're definitely getting a more kind of simplified version of a subscription app. So, admittedly, if you've got very complex needs where you're trying to do different things every week or different recurring things and prices change or something like that, this might not be as full featured. But it's a great starting point because it handles a lot of the basic things that you need to do from a subscription standpoint. So, what are those things, right? You can set up basic plans. So, in other words, you can say, hey, I want to create a plan where I've got a certain product and I'm selling it through some kind of a recurring nature. So I'm going to create just one quick plan here so you can see the types of features and functionalities that it offers, and then you can kind of make the determination if that is enough. So you can give the plan some kind of a name. I'm just going to call it subscribe and save, right? That's the most easiest thing. And then, of course, you want to select the products, right? Which products are going to be part of this subscription? Of course, the types of products need to be something that makes sense, right? You can't necessarily do a subscription on a shirt, right? That doesn't make any sense. But what I do have here is from our good friends La Barba, I do have coffee. Things like food and coffee are great kind of recurring products that make a lot of sense for a subscription. So in this case, we're going to say, hey, if you want to get, every X number of whatever the period may be of this particular coffee, that's what this subscription is going to be all about. Then in terms of the functionality that Shopify gives you with their feature, you can say, okay, well, if somebody is going to buy this particular coffee, what do you want it to do? Do you want to offer some kind of a discount, which you typically do? So you can say, hey, if you subscribe, I'm going to give you a 10% discount for that particular, each one of those particular deliveries. So you can do a percentage, you can do an amount, like if you want to do an amount, like, okay, maybe they get $10 off or they get 10% off, or you can say, hey, I'm just going to make the actual product its own very specific kind of fixed price. So it's nice that you can do some kind of an option. Typically, it's a percentage or something like that. So that's how you do it here. And then you have the delivery frequency, right? So how often is this particular delivery going to be coming? You can do it weekly, monthly, or yearly, and then you can set the cadence here. So kind of for a coffee, maybe we say once a month. I don't know, some coffee drinkers that might not be enough. Patrick, I know you've been enjoying the La Barba coffee, so once a
Yeah.
month might not be enough. But let's say for this particular coffee, let's say it's a weekly, coffee delivery. And maybe in this case, why don't we change the name? We'll call it the, weekly coffee delivery. And so now I'll spell it correctly. And so now we've created this subscription plan. And in terms of features and functionality, what you see here is what you get. So I want to start by illustrating that's it. There aren't any other more options that I can do here. So already if you're thinking, I actually need to do like, every 1 week and then 2 weeks and then one more week or some, kind of odd cadence, you're not going to be able to do that using this particular feature. But if you've got something very simple like this and you want to do, like I said, a very kind of simple cadence, here you go. You can basically set it up. You can save it this way. I'm gonna go ahead and save this one. Oops, this is my internal description. So weekly coffee. And now we can save this. So now you've got that plan created. So if I go back to my list of plans that I have here, all of the different offerings that I have are going to be available here. And then as people start purchasing those, you'll be able to see all of the different subscriptions that are available here and do the maintenance that you would need to do, pausing, restarting, and all the kind of stuff that goes along with that. So from a subscription perspective, that's what you get with Shopify. Again, really simple but powerful, right? I mean, oftentimes subscriptions really should be simple, frankly, in terms of what it is. Patrick, any questions about subscriptions or anything before I move on?
No, nothing's popped up in the chat yet.
Okay, great. So again, subscriptions is a popular one. So this is what you can do with Shopify, right? Pretty simple, but extremely useful. The next thing is bundles, right? So what does Shopify's bundling service look like? So with Shopify, you can take a bunch of different products, you can put them together into a single bundle, and then people are going to be purchasing that bundle. So it's, as I mentioned earlier, as we talked about earlier, it's a great way to handle the AOV, right? Increasing the average order value of something that somebody purchases. And it's actually very, very simple to do, very, very straightforward. You say, I'm going to create a bundle. You can call this a new bundle. So let's say maybe I have some jewelry items, right? So I'm gonna call this the jewelry bundle. and I'm going to select different jewelry products. And when somebody purchases it, they're going to get everything that's in that bundle. So you simply give it a name, you select your products, and now you can pick anything from this list of products that you have at your store. So I'm going to say, hey, you can get the necklace and you can get the bracelet. I'm going to sell this together as a bundle. Let's keep it kind of simple. And there you go. So now this jewelry bundle consists of this particular product. Now, maybe if you had smaller items or smaller jewelry or something like that, you wanted to have like multiple items, you can actually do multiple. So this particular bundle, when somebody purchases it, would be one of these, and it would potentially be two of those. And then you can always just add more products if you're going to add more products. If you have a product, so let's say you also get this bracelet, and there you go. Now, if you had a product that had variants in it, like I'm just gonna, again, this won't make any sense, but I've got variants and I can show you it. If you had a product that had variants, you could also target just specific variants and say, okay, you could get this particular one, but only the small one, which is, part of the bundle. So you can see how you can create some kind of interesting set of bundles. And when somebody buys it, this is what they're going to get. You could also deal with duplicating a product. So in this case, if you wanted to say, well, maybe they get the small, I'd do it on this one, maybe they get the small and the medium, you could potentially duplicate this product, and that way they get, the small and the medium. Now, again, with a shirt, it might not make any sense, but just want to give you an idea that you are able to create some kind of unique bundles and sell them. And then the next most obvious question is well, how does it deal with the quantity of something like this? So I'm going to save this product. And what's going to happen is Shopify is going to make a new product for you, as you can see here, called the jewelry bundle. And it now exists as its own product. You can give it its own description. You can give it its own picture, if you want for anything, maybe use AI and make up a picture or something for it. But then you'll notice the difference here is that it says it is a bundled product. It's going to include all of these particular items. So when somebody buys this one thing, they actually get these four things. You can decide what the price is here. You can make up your own price. Maybe you want to give them a discount. Maybe you want to do something. It's up to you. You can make a unique price. The individual prices here don't matter. But what does matter is the inventory. And so this is where it actually gets kind of smart, which is it's going to look at the lowest inventory value for the products that are inside of the bundle. And basically that's going to be the minimum, or actually the maximum that somebody can buy for this particular product because it's made up of each of these individual items. So in this case, you can see there's only 20 of this bundle because somewhere along the lines, one of these products has 20 available as a maximum, and that's all that you can get for it. So that's how it does kind of some smarts for figuring out how the bundle is going to work. Patrick, we have some questions about the bundle.
Yeah, we did have some other questions pop up around POs and point of sale, which I'm sure we'll be able to get to at least on some level towards the end here. But
Mhm.
we did have one question about the bundle from Mindy. How do you take the product off the market and only available for the bundle? So is that possible?
Yeah, well, so you would probably want to take, so let's say for example here, like if you didn't want people to buy this particular product, we could go to that product and make it an unlisted product. Now I do want to keep in mind, because I think we might want to understand more of the why you're trying to do this. If you take the product off of the having it being sold by itself, it won't affect the quantity of the bundle. So oftentimes people think, oh, if I take that one product off, then I won't have to worry about the quantities. So if that's the problem you're trying to solve, it won't solve that problem. If you just don't want people to buy it by itself, then you can make it an unlisted product, and that individual product will be removed from the search, will be removed from anything, and it's really only going to be accessible for the bundle. And so what that will do is at least nobody is buying it separately and then messing with the inventory of the bundle, which is maybe the problem that you're trying to solve. So if that's the case, let's say for example this carved bangle bracelet, if we only wanted it potentially to be involved as part of the bundle, you would go to that particular product. So I'll go into the product area. I'm going to go to this bangle bracelet, and here where you have a status, you want to take this, and you see here, and it's called unlisted. And if you make it an unlisted product, then that way people won't be able to find it on the site. They won't be able to access it. and then it will still show up. Keep in mind you don't want to do draft. If you make it a draft product, then it's going to pull it out of the bundle. Like the bundle won't see it anymore, and it's going to cause a problem. So you definitely don't want to do, unlisted, excuse me, draft, make it an unlisted product, and that should, for the most part, solve that particular issue. All right, cool, great question. Let's keep moving here for sake of time, trying to get through all these. I know there's a lot. Let's talk about forms. Oops, let me discard this. So the next thing is going to be forms. So Shopify has this really useful form building tool inside of it if you want to create custom forms so people can do, again, there's a whole series of different things that you could potentially handle with these forms. Sign up forms, B2B forms, or maybe just gathering information or whatever you want to do. It can all be done from this Forms app that Shopify has. Again, natively in the system. So everything that we're showing you right now, you just get with Shopify. These aren't extra costs. They're not costing you more. It is literally what you get with Shopify. So if you wanted to create a custom form, you simply click the create form. You can choose from a pop-up, something that's going to pop up in the screen, or just a simple embedded online form. And so maybe this is going to be like let's call it a product feedback form. I don't know, I'm just making up something here, right? And we're going to make this an inline form. So you have a page that you're going to send people, say, hey, give us some information about a product or something like that. And then you say create. And then now you have all this information here to create different information. You can change you know, the title of the particular form. You can change the information about it, description here about it. I got a description. And then you can choose different fields you want to add. Here's the most basic, get somebody's first name and their email address. You can just click here, add any other fields. Like, it has some standard fields, last name, phone, birthday, address, coupon, date, oops, all that information. But of course, you can always click into here and then create your own custom fields. So that can be single text, drop downs, radio links, numbers, file uploads, even. For example, maybe you want to collect somebody's tax ID information, or a reseller certificate or something like that. You can do it all from within here. So you can simply just say, hey, I'm going to put this is going to be a custom field. You can have some minimum or maximum information here. Sometimes it's good. Maybe I just want to put a custom field here. I'm going to say done, and then there you go. That field just shows up. And this here is the form, kind of like a little bit of a preview of the form. If you want to move it around, you can move it around again. You can drag and drop, adjust all of the content on it. You can adjust what happens when somebody fills out the form. Did they go to a success page? Do you redirect them somewhere else? A lot of really, really cool stuff you can do with that. Of course, change the fonts and the styling for it, where it's going to show up, different languages. If you're doing markets and you have different languages, you can put them in different languages. Automatically add a tag. Somebody fills out that particular form, you tag them. That's a good way. We'll talk about this in a second. If you're doing customer information, sending them an email notifications, set up additional workflows. Maybe you want something to happen after the form gets filled out. Again, a lot of great stuff that you can do with this particular one here for creating forms, right? So definitely, if you're not using forms to collect information, you definitely want to think about it, because it's definitely a very useful one. Patrick, any questions about forms or anything before we kind of move on?
Nope, there was one quick question just clarifying what a radio button is. So just a quick differentiation from checkboxes and radio buttons, which are pretty much the two typical ones there. So checkboxes in a list, you'll be able to select multiple items. With a radio button, you're essentially limited to one response from that group of potential responses. It's typically presented as a circle, whereas a checkbox is presented as a square.
hmm Yeah, thanks, Patrick. And when do you use them? It's a strategy question, right? You need to decide upon whatever the question is, which one of those makes the most sense to hopefully give you the answer that you want. Great questions. Keep them coming, and really, really appreciate everyone asking some questions. Search and discovery. We talked about that a moment ago. Let me discard this. We talked about that a moment ago about the extreme discard. I missed it. Talking about
Maybe,
how.
sorry, one question though, if this app is not listed, does that have to do with which plan I have? So we had Mr. Colin, I think, asking, I don't know if it's forms or any particular one that we've covered so far, but if you want to speak quickly to kind of the tiering of the licenses and what of these apps would be available.
Definitely. For this particular webinar, All of the apps and everything that I've chosen are standard apps that are available for all plans. So none of these are like the plus only. We very consciously wanted to pick ones that everybody could use. So it should definitely be there. If you're not seeing it, just make sure you're typing in Shopify forms. But it's definitely a standard app that's available for any of the plans in the Shopify App Store. So maybe try typing Shopify app. Then maybe that's why it's maybe possibly not popping up. Let's talk about search and discovery. As you mentioned before, this is an extremely popular one, and some people don't even know that this app exists. And again, this just comes with Shopify, right? This is an out of the gate, out of the box app that you get for handling different searching and filtering for the site. So one of the first things you get when you're utilizing this, let me dismiss this guide, is this great performance here. So you can see how often people are searching, what kind of a click rate you're getting, what kind of a purchase rate you're getting, like how many people who search actually purchase, how many people who search actually click. Again, this is a demo store, so I don't have any information to show here, but also things like top searches, right? What are people searching for the most? What happens when somebody searches and no results pop up? What happens when somebody searches, results come up, but no clicks are happening? And while that may seem a little esoteric, think about how extremely useful this is, right? Let's say, for example, you want to see that maybe you've released a new product and you want to see, is that the top thing people are searching for? Well, maybe it's some other product. And this list will show you the top thing somebody's searching for. So now, from a marketing perspective, you can think to yourself, well, wow, if that's the most popular thing, somebody's searching for, maybe I should do something about it. Maybe I should promote it more, right? Maybe I should make it top of my, top feature it on my homepage or something like that. Patrick.
Yeah. Yeah, no, just one thing to add here. Obviously, this has to do with, products that are already, in your collections and that you're already selling. But sometimes you'll uncover whole new products and product lines that are clearly of interest to the people visiting your website, and it might convince you to expand into selling new items or services from the site.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So very, very useful information that's here in the search and discovery app. In addition to uh, giving you search information, you can also create filters. And what filters are is if on a typical PLP, on the product listing pages, people are gonna want to be able to filter the information. Typically it's kind of down the left-hand side. And so with the search and discovery app, you have the ability to create your own custom filters from all kinds of different sources. You can use any of the Shopify's native taxonomy that's already inside of the system, your own custom meta fields that you've created, right? Any of these, all of this information can now become filterable down the left-hand side. And you'll notice some of these here where it says category meta field. These are Shopify's native taxonomy. So again, if you're using Shopify's taxonomy for a product, now this native app is able to utilize that. And that's something that other apps can't do because this is a native thing inside of Shopify. Now, real quick, a couple of you may be saying, well, what are you talking about? What's native taxonomy? So I'll show you on any product. If you go, and you look right underneath the images, you'll see this thing here called category. And this is Shopify's native taxonomy for categorizing products. And so Shopify will use its AI to try to detect where it should go. And or you can kind of select your own manually. And you see here they're giving you some suggestions. So in this case, when I pick dinnerware sets and it says two suggestions, if you scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see it will automatically add this additional information for you. What is the color? What is the color of the dishes? What is included with the dinnerware, right? This is really great additional meta fields. And so these additional meta fields, when you're using this taxonomy, if we go back to the search and discovery, that's exactly what you can use to create filters. So when you look at this list and it says, hey, I'm going to create a filter based off of information, that's what all this information here is. It is from the category meta fields that are generated from the taxonomy, or of course your own custom meta fields. So this is a really, really great way. So for example, if we said, okay, this particular jewelry, there's a certain design, I can just, you say, bracelet design, and now the bracelet design becomes something that's filterable. And now you can add some logic. Are you going to say if it's this filter or this other filter, or is it this filter and this other filter, right? You can create some logic around that particular filter and how it's going to work. And then when you save it, you'll now see that your list of filters that you've got here, I'll go back from here. The list of filters that you have now includes this bracelet design. So very, very powerful to have this here. In addition, in the search and discovery, you've got the recommendations area. This is pretty self-explanatory, but I'll just kind of go over it real quick. So if somebody buys or somebody is viewing this particular product, what are the other related products that you want to be shown on that same page? And so right now you can see this little Shopify's purple, which signifies AI, right? Anytime you see that purple, you know it's Shopify's AI taking over. So in this case, Shopify's AI is trying to come up with some products, but it's probably not correct. So you can always click into it and say, well, these in fact are the products that I want to show instead. So you can generate, you can add your own products as opposed to the auto-generated ones, which is what Shopify is trying to do. So a really powerful way to curate your products and make sure you're getting what you want to see there. And then lastly, again, talking about search, some really, really cool things you can do with search. What shows up in your search? Are you utilizing predictive search? What do you want to do with products that are out of stock, empty value searches? So some really, really good stuff that you can do there. And in addition to that, in the search area, things like product boosts, like we mentioned a moment ago. If a certain product is popping up a lot, maybe you want to boost it. Or if you notice from the searches, people are spelling a product incorrectly, create a synonym to make sure that misspellings don't somehow cause them to miss to miss a product or something like that. So that's search and discovery. So again, all of these apps, everything that I'm showing you here is Shopify doing it. Now, if you're looking at some of these and you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, gosh, like they're not quite enough. Maybe they've got some basic features, but it's not enough features. If that's starting to pop into your mind, now this is where the next thing we'll get into a moment here, which is, well, when do you know you need to go to an app as opposed to a native feature? This is when you'll know if what I'm showing you, if as you go through some of this you think it's not quite powerful enough, that's the first inkling that maybe you need to look for an app. Maybe what you've got there isn't, maybe what Shopify has even isn't enough. It's very useful though because of the cost savings for anything, right? So the next thing we want to talk about is cost savings. Everything I just showed you included, right? You get that as part of Shopify. So when you buy Shopify, you have your plans. All of this is included in your plan price. So free for all intents and purposes, right? You can't beat free. So what are you weighing against this, right? If you're thinking, okay, that subscription maybe doesn't do some kind of weird fancy cadences, but is it worth having to pay for an app? And so what does that look like? So I'm just going to pop over to the Shopify App Store right now and just bring up, I just type subscriptions here. No particular loyalty here to any of these apps. I'm just, we'll click on the first one. So you will want to do a little bit of an exercise to determine is the basic Shopify subscription that we just showed you, is that enough? Or do you have to buy, is it worth paying for, let's click this first one here that shows up. Is it worth paying $9 a month or $29 a month or $149 a month, right? So now this is the contrast that you want to do for subscriptions apps. Let's pick another app that shows up here, right? So here's this easy subscriptions, right? Let's see what that one costs. That one's $99 a month. So you'll see that in terms of free, you now have to say, okay, well, how much am I paying? I'll just click one more here so we can see. This one's $40 a month. So you may think to yourself, well, $40 a month isn't bad, but that's one app, right? We just went over 5 different things. So now imagine you're paying 40 times 5. Now all of a sudden that number it gets to be a lot, right? You could be talking about an extra 5, 6, 700, even more. There are some apps that are hundreds of dollars, right? So you have to think about the costs of the different apps versus what you get for free. Patrick.
Yeah, I know obviously this is a useful exercise to look at the different costs for different apps and talk about the cost savings. There are a few other kind of native Shopify things. I don't know if we want to jump back into the console, and I know we're going to go to point of sale in a second here, but maybe we can just hit at least at a high level some of these other questions that popped up around native functionality.
Sure. Which
Y-
one?
Yeah, let's start with there was one question that came in around what AI tools does Shopify offer? And there's a ton. I mean, AI is at this point pretty much sprinkled into the platform in all different areas, like the taxonomy, and like being able to auto generate the metadata around product color and those types of things. In your product images, being able to automatically crop backgrounds, generating descriptions via AI, all of that kind of stuff is native. And then also, if you're using Shopify's Horizon theme, there's some really cool things in there to actually generate elements on the front end of the website just by prompting Shopify. I need a block that's promoting my boots for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and I want it to look like this, and it'll actually generate some of that code and produce it for you. So it's all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. And anytime you see that purple, right, that's where it's, Shopify is using that purple to signify that. So as Patrick already mentioned, right, just a quick, demonstration. So here I can click on this icon and I can say, hey, write me something, red shirt. I mean, I should give it more information than this, but just for kind of quickly, right, and say, hey, I want a playful, fun description about a red shirt. And then Shopify will query for a couple seconds, and then there you go. So now you've got this information, and if you like it, you could say keep, and it would now store that for you as part of your description. So if you're lacking some kind of fun or finding some ways to make your descriptions a little bit more unique, boom, there's an AI tool. Clicking on a product, you've got AI tools here. So maybe you want to take this shirt and say, hey, show it, show someone wearing it at a party. Okay, again, I'm just kind of making up something here, right? So here's a way to contextualize, and this is something we actually tell customers to do a lot. If you have just a shirt like this, it's great, it's helpful, but oftentimes people want to see, hey, what does it look like, when I'm wearing it out? What does it look like when I'm, doing something else? And so oftentimes, one of the best ways of using AI is to take something like this, where you have a very clear shirt against a very simple background, and then you ask Shopify to go in using this AI to tell it, hey, add a little context to it. And there you go, right? Here's this kind of cool picture, right? Now, of course, you always want to check, is this still the shirt? Did it somehow change the shirt or change something fundamentally? In this case, no, not really. This looks really, really cool. So I could say, you know what? I'm going to save this as a new image for this particular product. It'll just take a couple seconds, and then boom, there you go. You now have this new image that's now going to be saved in the carousel with the product. So those are just two kind of quick things for sake of time here. We can't go too much more in depth, but this
Yeah.
is an example of, some of the things that you can do with AI, and it's kind of sprinkled all over the place. We're going to have an AI webinar coming up pretty soon, but for this particular one, this is just an idea of, some of the things that you can do.
Yeah. And just a quick piggyback on that, for especially for drop shippers out there or people working with products where they don't have real consistent product images, encouraging trust with your brand on the website is really done at first glance. And for me, it's making sure it's kind of a unified shopping experience. So even if you're just doing something really basic to make the product images maybe coming from 10 different vendors all more uniform, and fit the theme of your website, can work wonders in terms of making your site look more professional. So just one great way to apply that. Sales tax, Dean, is that something we
Oh,
want to touch on real quick
yeah,
if
we're
we've
not going
got
to have
time?
time to jump into sales tax today,
Okay.
but there are, there's tons of apps. Shopify does have a really good kind of sales tax thing, sales tax app that's available on the platform. So just real quick, when you go to your settings area here, you can go into sales tax, and the new thing that Shopify has, which is called Shopify Tax, is actually really powerful, right? You can go to, your particular region. You can really set up a lot of, all the different places where you have tax liabilities. So in this particular store as a demo, I'm saying, hey, I've got liability in South Carolina. I've got liability in New York. You could also specifically call out any states where you've got your tax ID number and your tax ID information. You can put that in here. So all of the stuff that you would expect, and then Shopify comes in and it shows you your liabilities, right? So you can access a report. So for example, here in California, where I'm saying I'm collecting reports, or excuse me, where I'm collecting tax, Shopify will show you, well, how much tax came through for any particular order for that particular jurisdiction. So there's definitely a lot of really, really great stuff that you can do. I would say tax is a little bit tricky because if you have something a little bit more sophisticated, you may need to look at some additional tax apps that are out there. But from a just kind of a basic covering the taxes that you want to do, again, you can set up your different regions in here. You can set up if you want to do any kind of overrides or product overrides for the taxes. In other words, saying, hey, this particular shipping is going to override the tax. This particular product is going to have a tax override. Um, the different rate management you see here where it says uncategorized products. What does uncategorized products mean? You remember a moment ago when I had showed you that taxonomy, that product taxonomy? Well, lo and behold, here it is again, popping up inside of Shopify. And for those of you who are familiar with tax, the product category is absolutely going to play into the tax. So this is another example where using Shopify's native tool to plug in to the taxonomy that's available now lets you assign the category for the taxes. So this is something that's very powerful that you can certainly tap into because you're using Shopify's tax. So that's kind of a high level. I'm not sure if you have any more specific questions. I'm happy to kind of, since you are here and asking questions, I'm happy to kind of jump into a little bit more. So let us know if you have any more kind of specific questions about the tax. But there's definitely some really, really cool things that you can do with it. Um, so when do you know, and I think this is, let's talk about it here. When do you know if the native feature isn't enough, right? So the next question is going to be at some point in time, you're going to have to come to the realization of, okay, well, I've got these features. Are they good enough or do I need an app? And so the first things, if you go back and think about everything that we just showed you, like the subscriptions feature, right? Is that enough? Is your cadence and your workflow is simple enough to say, hey, every week, every month, every year, they get a product and it shows up and they have a subscription. If your workflow is that simple, then you know that Shopify's feature is going to be good enough for what you want. If it's not, then you have to think, okay, again, like as we talked before a moment ago about the cost of it all, right? Is this something that it's worth paying for, right? Because there's going to be a cost involved. Something like subscriptions, absolutely, right? Because subscriptions are going to generate money for you, right? They're something that you offer that generates money. So investing in something like that, again, that's something else to kind of check off and say, yeah, I should invest some time and money in that because it is a money maker for me. So already you've got two things that say, hey, maybe looking for an app makes sense. And then if it does, now you jump into the App Store and then try to find an app and say, okay, let me look at the costs. Let me see what features it offers and where it makes sense, if it makes sense for what it is that you want to do. So that's one quick way to kind of, give yourself your own little mental exercise. And then, of course, there's also some things that Shopify doesn't really have a native solution for doing that's quite as easy. You can always put things together. Shopify is powerful enough that you could use Flow or you could use some of these other tools to create a custom version of something. But there are things that are just much easier and much better handled through a third party. So for example, something like loyalty. This is a feature request that comes up quite often where people say, hey, I want to do some kind of loyalty or a wish list or something like that. Shopify doesn't do those types of things natively at all. So that's the next thing on your checklist. If you can't really find a solution natively, then go to the App Store and try to find it. And oftentimes it is some kind of a feature like this, loyalty, reviews, wish lists. Those are very common things that you'll need an app. What are another common thing? Connectivity to an external platform. So maybe you want an integration with something like a Klaviyo or a Mailchimp, or maybe you're doing something with NetSuite or with your third-party warehouse, right? Whenever you have to send data back and forth to some kind of a third party, chances are an app is going to be something you're going to want to invest in, right? You're going to want to say, hey, I need to get an app to get that information in and out because Shopify doesn't really have a native solution for that that's quite as easy as an app. Now, again, there is Shopify Flow, there is the API. Things can be put together, but if you're looking to get things up and started a little bit more quickly, you want to look at an app for something like an integration. Another category is going to be point of sale. right? Shopify has a great point of sale. It does a lot of cool stuff, but maybe you want to add some fancy features or something to it. And because the point of sale is as an app, like an iPad app, for example, you don't have quite the same flexibility that you do with Shopify's online store. So this is where apps really make a lot of sense. So on the POS side, kind of like this Cart Fields app, if you need to add additional features, if you need to add additional fields, like you want to collect some fields, or you want to add something, for example, like a post-purchase checkout or a net promoter score or something like that. These are all things that you can do with apps because again, it's not native to Shopify's app POS apps to be able to go in and make changes to it. So this is where, if you're trying to think to yourself, when does it make sense to try to use an app? That's a place that makes a lot of sense. I do want to be conscious of time. We had a lot of great questions, and there's definitely a lot to cover here. So I do want to pause for a second and pa ask Patrick, do we have any more questions at all, or does anybody have
Yeah,
anything else?
there was a couple of questions that popped up around POs, vendor management, and just generally things related to Stocky, which is Shopify's native inventory management tool. Obviously, a very deep topic to get into, and a whole slew of external systems that may be or are frequently involved on top of what Shopify has natively. So obviously, for anyone that's interested in that conversation or going deeper onto any of these topics, don't hesitate to reach out to have more of a one-on-one conversation consultation so that we can do much more of a deeper dive on the challenges that you're facing. But if you've got a second to show Stocky or something like that, I'm sure it would be appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly talk about it. I mean, again, this discussion is about apps and not how to use Stocky, so I don't really want to show
Hmm.
you how to use Stocky, but in terms of what it does and where does it make sense to keep, with the topic of today. So Stocky is an app that Shopify has created that supports inventory management and connects really closely also with the point of sale. So if you are trying to create purchase orders, if you have a very distinct purchasing and receiving flow, utilizing something like Stocky makes lots of sense. Now, going back to our topic of our discussion, right? Is Stocky going to be enough for you? Uh, this is a tougher one, right? Because purchasing and receiving is very specific to your business, right? Businesses have very specific needs and requirements because we're talking about money and stock on hand and warehousing. So is Stocky going to be enough? Who knows? It has all the core things that you want, right? You can create purchase orders. You can look at your orders that come into the system. You can create transfer orders, TOs, purchases. You can do stock takes. You can do adjustments, transfers, all the great stuff that you need to do. You can generate suppliers, which is something that, in the native Shopify area isn't as readily available. So from here, you can catalog all of your different suppliers. And then if you click into a supplier, you can connect all of the products with those suppliers. So that's a really great handy feature to have. And it's quite possible if you have a really simple workflow, utilizing something like Stocky could be very helpful because you can, I'll just do a quick purchase order here so you can see, you can create a purchase order. You can say, hey, I'm getting something from a certain particular vendor that I've got already saved in my system, and I want to send it to my store in Los Angeles or maybe your online store, right? So you can very quickly create a purchase order and then put in all the basic information. What products are you purchasing? So let's say I wanted to restock the hoodies from this particular store, and you can say, hey, I only have 3 left at this particular location, so I'm going to click on it, and I want to order an additional 50 because I'm really low on stock. So, and then you can add that to the purchase order, fill out the basic information here, and then order that particular purchase order and have that sent. You can send it using the send here to that particular supplier. So if your workflow is that simple, Stocky makes a lot of sense. Going back to the discussion that we've been having here on hand as to, when do you think you need to do, potentially more, that's where you'll have to go, okay, do you have more sophisticated needs, more sophisticated feature sets? Some people have advanced forecasting that they need to do or different landed costs versus average costing, a lot of fancier things that if you need those, that's where, per today's discussion, you may want to think about doing a different third-party app. So a lot of great questions. Want to appreciate everybody for talking here. I do want to do a quick little drop here. We do these webinars and these events all the time. This is today's that we did. We have some other great upcoming ones here on Fridays. We've got one to talk about Shopify's cart fields. We have another one to talk about the store credits and gift cards. A whole new series is coming in November every Friday. So definitely take a look at our events page if you want to know what's coming up. We should be sending out an email follow-up after this particular webinar with a link to all that information there for you guys to sign up. But definitely want to have you guys sign up. And we're doing a lot of these. And if you sign up early, feel free to ask us some questions. I know there's a couple people here. I think we left kind of hanging a little bit with some of your questions. So feel free when we blast out that response, reply right back to us. Let us know what you want to know about. We'll make a new webinar. We'll cover it in one of our upcoming webinars. So definitely, looking forward to having you guys on an additional webinar. Patrick, we also have some great kind of support for those of you who, I know we brought up a lot of questions here. Maybe thinking to yourself, well, I don't know how to do a lot of this stuff. I need a little bit of help. Patrick, if you want to talk about some of the cool offers that we've got in place right now.
Yeah, let me just do a jump to the screen share here. Let me make sure that's popping up. So yeah, we have on offer is our Shopify Success Plan. So this is essentially, there's two flavors that this comes in, and I'll just jump right to it. And we're continuing to offer this promotion since it's something we've been talking about for the last month or so. We have our support plan, which includes store audits, support tickets with with Sunrise to support your Shopify store, POS support for folks that are using point of sale in their retail environment, weekly consultation meetings, and setting up and monitoring all of your key analytics and SEO, including keyword reporting, and then pertinent to the conversation today, helping you select, download, and configure apps from the Shopify App Store. So that's part of our support plan. And then for the folks that are maybe in more of a growth mode or looking for a little bit more hands-on support and making those insights from the reporting and consultation actionable, we've got our Shopify growth plan, also discounted here for the next 3 months, where we actually enact changes on your website. So can actually do SEO optimization, performance optimization, theme design, and theme editing on the front end of the website, and just generally being much more of a hands-on partner for you now through the holidays and with the goal of setting you up for success in 2026. So that's all I have to share. Obviously, if you have particular questions around any of the apps or topics that we talked about today, or if you wanted to learn more about working with Sunrise and how we can help you, don't hesitate to reach out to me or respond to the webinar email that's going out after the webinar today.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate it. Thanks all of you for joining this webinar. I think I got a couple questions answered here while you were talking. I popped in and answered
Awesome.
a couple people there online. So thank you all. Look for the follow-up email address and don't miss tomorrow's next upcoming webinar. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.